Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you're watching, welcome to the North Suffolk Community Services Wellness Series. This is a new series, and we'll be having different guests speaking about mental and behavioral health, wellness, and other topics that fall within that. My name is Kelly Knox. I am the Assistant Vice President of Advancement at North Suffolk. And North Suffolk was founded in 1959 to serve the mental and behavioral health needs of Chelsea, Revere, East Boston, and Winthrop. Nearly 65 years later, through shifts and change in knowledge and policy, we continue to provide high-quality, evidence-based services for people of all ages, from birth onward. Today's guests are Kate Moore of North Suffolk Community Services and Captain David Betts of the Chelsea Police Department. So welcome.
Good morning.
Kate is the Director of Emergency Services at North Suffolk. She's an independently licensed clinical social worker, and she's worked for North Suffolk for 8 years. She's been in the field for more than 20 years. She was born and raised in the Boston area. She spent a lot of her youth doing humanitarian eye care trips to Nicaragua with her family. You went 14 times, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She credits these trips with having sparked her interest in social work. Captain Betts, he's been with the police department, Chelsea Police Department, since 1990. Prior to that, he was a patrolman with the Arlington Police Department for a couple of years, as well as a couple of years with the Harvard University Police Department's Communication Division. Currently, he oversees the Criminal Investigations Division and has been a supervisor as well as a detective for 23 years. He holds a master's degree in criminal justice from Anna Marie College. Since 2017, he's been a frequent guest lecturer working with several organizations involved with suicide awareness and prevention, focused primarily on law enforcement. In 2017, he lost his eldest son, David, to suicide by firearm. David was 24 years of age and had just started working for the Massachusetts Department of Mental Health Police as a police officer. So, welcome. Welcome to the show, and we'll be discussing the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. We'll be discussing the relationship between North Suffolk and the Chelsea Police Department and how that works and how that's changed a little bit, the policing in Chelsea. So Kate, can you just give us an overview of the history of that relationship?
Yeah, so the relationship goes back many years between the Chelsea Police and the community. North Suffolk started to get involved in what's called the Chelsea Hub, which is a weekly meeting that Chelsea puts on through the police department. And with that meeting, many different providers will come to the table and talk about clients who are at acutely elevated risk of harm, and we intervene right then and there to support clients. So I've been participating in those meetings for probably about 6 years, and with that, we really saw the need to have our mobile crisis team have a part inside the police department, so actually riding with police officers daily to offer support to clients that were in psychiatric need in any kind of scenario that police are called to.
Mm-hmm. Dave, can you speak a little bit about the relationship from the police side?
Sure. So, ironically, since 1988, there's been some sort of relationship between the Chelsea Police Department and mental health clinicians through Mass General Hospital and the PACT team, the Police Action Counseling Team, where there would be a co-response mechanism, but it would often be the aftermath of crime, where they would respond to a scene that was tragic or horrific, where children would be involved or other people would be involved, and they would provide the outpatient clinical services to them as they saw fit. Fast forward to today's standards, and in the past 6 years, the department, along with North Suffolk, the best team, and the partnerships that they've forged, realized that there should be a more proactive approach to it, and a co-response team where the clinicians would actually go out with the police at the onset of an issue and basically decide from that point, what clinical services they may need, as opposed to the criminal justice avenue of it, where they would benefit far more from, mental health intervention than they would from, the penal system.
That's pretty awesome. Can you, one of you, just kind of give a case scenario, like how it would, and kind of point to how it would have been if it wasn't this way now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can both speak to a particular case that we had together not too long ago, where we had a call for a service for somebody who was suicidal. Actually, both of us responded right away together to that home, and we were able to really help the client. And I don't mean just by being there, because there was a lot of people there at the time. The client was having a really hard time at that time, to the point that she actually went back inside the house, locked herself inside a bathroom, and we were really concerned about what was going to happen. And we were able to take the time between the police and myself and sit with her for a long time, probably 45 minutes.
At least 45 minutes.
Yeah, at least that amount of time. And she let me into the bathroom to talk with her, and we were able to create a plan, and together we were able to get her to be able to walk out on her own and get the help that she needed.
That's a great story. Let the audience know how it would have gone down if there wasn't a relationship with a clinician.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, policing historically, regardless of, what the call may be, is, we're the agency of last resort. They always call the police, for anything. Even like by today's standards with the cold weather, they would call the police station to see if there was school. At 3 o'clock in the morning, after the Super Bowl on a Sunday, if you needed something, you would call the police. And we wouldn't have that mechanism in place, to call a clinician or call somebody else. So we would respond to a call, and we don't have the luxury of time. A lot of times it's given the call volume of the city, the demographics, and just the virtual nature of the city, we get a lot of calls. So to be able to stay 45 minutes or an hour at any type of call, it's usually unheard of way back. So more often than not, we would have went to a scene like we went to that day together. We just happened to be working, simultaneously. And we would have went to the call. The girl would have made statements, or somebody would have made statements, girl, guy, whomever. And we would have just acted on our training that we felt they were a danger to themselves or the community. We would have filled out a Section 12 paper, and we would have sent them to the hospital. And that would have been it, until the next call, or the next call, and the next call. Having these teams in place now, we are able to go to these calls, spend the time as needed, and then there's always a follow-up plan or a follow-up call, to that person, and it often personalizes, the interaction more than just, being a face or a jacket or a badge, responding to a call. They actually have that connection with the person that they forged from the outset.
Yeah. Just for informational sake, let us know what Section 12 means.
Okay, so in the policing world, the Section 12 form is just a subsection of the law. So the Mass Law is Chapter 123, Section 12, and that is what they refer to as a pink paper, where the police are authorized by their employment and their authority to have a person that they feel is a substantial risk to themselves of harm to petition a hospital to examine them, basically involuntarily. So we're basically forcing them to go to the hospital to be evaluated. When they get to the hospital, and Kate can probably attest to this, we don't know what happens. And from the point that we meet them to the point that they go to the hospital, they could present totally different. So they could present as a danger to themselves or others at the scene, and then they go to the hospital and they don't present that same type of scenario that they did to us, and the hospital could just, in essence, release them without any follow-up care, just to repeat that whole cycle. And it would be a detriment to them as well as to somebody else they may come in contact with without having the services that they may need.
Yeah.
So the difference when a clinician's on site is that we can also do a Section 12, which is you're able to do as a doctor, a social worker, a nurse, or a police officer. So the difference between the Section 12 that the police might sign and the Section 12 that I may sign is that I've already done the clinical evaluation. So the same evaluation that would be done at the hospital, I can do on scene. So it allows for the Section 12 to hold in a different fashion a lot of time because I've already evaluated the client. I've already determined that they really do need this level of care. And then I can call over to the hospital and say, you know, this is why I issued this Section 12. I tried to come up with other plans, but this is what needs to happen right now. And then we can get them the care that they need right then. And there's less likelihood of somebody being released that really does need to be in the hospital that isn't presenting that same way. So it's really doing that on site instead of just waiting to get to the hospital.
Yeah, it sounds like a much more compassionate way of dealing with the community and people in need. And it also sounds like it might actually save some money because people won't be cycling in and out. I mean, the cost of those cycling is pretty astronomical.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits. We always use a Section 12 as a last option. I always tell my staff, we're violating somebody's human and civil rights when we send them to the hospital against their will. We're doing so because we need to keep them safe. But it's a strong thing to do. It's like arresting somebody. You don't want to do it unless you absolutely have to. So we're often assessing and seeing if there's other options for that person right then. And coming up with a plan. But it does help because then somebody doesn't have to go to the hospital that doesn't need to be there. Somebody that we can come up with another plan for, that we can put in those services and they can go to a crisis unit instead, or a partial hospitalization, which is a day program, or maybe just therapy, or meeting with a clinician might be what somebody needed in that time. So numbers like 988, which actually goes to our hotline. So we have a call center through North Suffolk that is 24/7, 365. We never close. I always say we don't close for pandemics. We don't close for snowstorms, for very cold days. Our staff is always available, as our police, to assist people that are in crisis. And so 988 is that national hotline. And those phone calls, if somebody's in acute psychiatric concern and needs a clinician to come out, those calls will be directly sent to our call center at North Suffolk, and we can send a clinician out 24/7, 365.
Yeah, that's awesome. So North Suffolk was just recently awarded the CBHC
Yes.
contract with the state, and that's kind of shifting and changing, right? I mean, the police can even drop people off in the middle of the night.
They
Is
can.
that correct?
Yeah. And they do.
Yeah.
We have people that walk in either because a police officer has brought them in and they're being brought on their own fruition and they're not being coerced or under arrest. They're being brought in because the person is willing to get the support and wants to meet with the clinician. Instead of maybe going to the police station on a hold because the police are concerned about that person. So police can bring somebody over to our office in East Boston at 14 Porter Street 24/7 to come be evaluated. And we also have walk-in hours for the CBHC. And what that CBHC is it offers the community-based health, like anything from therapy to substance use supports. And those hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday and 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, Sunday. That somebody can come in for non-crisis needs, so for urgent needs or they need to get connected with therapy or other services, they can walk in any of those times as well to get connected to services.
So essentially it's like a mental health, behavioral health urgent care center.
It
Like
is.
you would go if you had a sore throat
Yep.
to the medical. So
Yeah, you
that-
come to us because you're feeling depressed
Yeah.
or anxious. And we have recovery coaches who are people who work in the substance use world, who have lived experiences themselves and can help support through detoxes or other substance use supports that are needed too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dave,
Yes,
tell us a little, you advocated for this on the police cars, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about that story and why that was important to you.
Sure. Well, I mean, I obviously am, a survivor of my son's, suicide, and we also had a member of our department who ended their life too soon by suicide as well. So, I've found myself looking at, through another lens now. It wasn't just the professional lens of going to another call, and having to leave and, just lather, rinse, and repeat cycle. So I was sitting there one day, like I usually do, with these ideas that I come up with, and I said, if we are, a 365 agency, and we are in the public eye all of the time, most of the time for good, sometimes not for so good, why don't we try to be more of an advocate for the community so they just don't see us, driving around as unnecessary evil? Because when you call the police, inevitably it's not for something good. They're not calling you to come over and celebrate a party. It's always something bad, and you are always on the defense when you go somewhere. Why not have something on the cars that people know they can call, if they're having a bad day? And with this whole 988 system that has, basically been implemented nationwide recently, why not take advantage of that and, be that roving billboard, throughout the city, put the numbers on the car, let the people see it, driving through traffic, sitting there idling. There's plenty of traffic in Chelsea that we all sit through all day. You see that number on the back of the cruiser. I don't think there's a person on the face of the earth now that does not face, some type of, maybe not a mental crisis, but a temporary lapse in normalcy, if you will, that they're not thinking about different things. And if you're not thinking about bills, you're thinking about your kids, you're thinking about your job, you're thinking about, COVID, post-COVID, or whatever it is that may ail you. You just may need to talk to somebody. Sometimes you can't talk to somebody in your family. A lot of times you don't want to talk to somebody in uniform, because you feel you're going to be judged. And that stigma that's associated with suicide is, more prevalent now than I ever thought it was before. I was totally ignorant to that fact, before my son's death. But now it's real, and it's become personalized. So if we can extend that personalization to the community, rather than just being that, the authoritative type people that we're looked upon, why not do it?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing, and thanks for pushing for that. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to talk to our audience about?
Well, I think that, the mere fact of, the state of everything today, the way things are, regardless of, the demographics, where you come from, who you are, what you do, everybody's faced with the same problems. Law enforcement, firefighters, doctors, clinicians, whomever, they work their shift every day, whether it's 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours. And out of that time span, we're dealing with everybody else's, issues or problems, and that's what we signed up for. But the other portion of the day, we go home and we deal with our own issues. And they don't see what we deal with, So we are the same people, if you will. We just have a different job. But part of that job is also to help them, right? So if we can humanize that portion of it through what we do or what we try to do, and extend to them the knowledge that, we're there to help them. We're not there to, incarcerate them most of the time. More often than not, we don't want to do that to anybody. So if we can extend some other type of service to them to let them know, hey, make this call, talk to this person, talk to that person. And let them know that, myself personally or other officers, the clinicians, doctors, firemen, whomever, have been in your shoes. It's not just lip service to say, I know how you feel. I genuinely know how you feel, and that's how I approach it now.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's societal. We just look upon people who are caregivers, and police are essentially caregivers. We fall in that category, as that.
Right.
And you don't have a different life. You don't have things to worry about.
No.
Your job is to take care of me.
Robotic.
Yeah.
We're robotic, and we're
Yeah.
not.
And I think it's great to humanize it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I actually think it's fate that Dave and I met when we did, because I had been looking and trying to figure out how we could create a phone number for police officers or other providers, firefighters, EMTs, nurses, doctors, social workers, people in the fields that are seeing horrific things day in and day out. Riding with police, I see the things that they see. And it's hard. I mean, you're seeing people's trauma and you're reliving people's trauma and then going to the next call and the next call and the next call. And you're not getting to process those things. No. And you're expected to just continue to do your job. And then you have your personal life, like you're saying. Right. And that comes into the work as well. So to be able to help people and put out a number that anyone can call, it doesn't matter your insurance, it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your language. We have the capability of helping you. And so it was just such a beautiful thing that we met when we did. Right. And we were under the, trying to do the same goal, is to help people. And to see the police department really putting a push on that is a really cool thing, because I've seen the struggles that they have. And the officers are doing incredible work. So it's great for people to be able to get that support that they need. And I'm happy that our team can be that support.
Yeah. Chelsea Police seems to be pretty unique to me.
I think so.
I'll let you continue on before I answer.
So I mean, I don't know a lot about police. I know what I read in the paper. Sure. Right. So I haven't met other policemen outside of Chelsea who are working to humanize themselves and their departments. They may be, I don't know.
Oh, they are, most definitely.
But so seeing it up front and close is very interesting to me, very heartwarming to me.
Sure, yeah. I mean, and generally the news is, the news is a necessary part of our lives, obviously, right? But, oftentimes, the facts will get skewed amongst, how you report it or, where you report it. So I think for us to get ahead of the curve and, profess what we're doing, actively, rather than people just thinking we are the bad people that come, take mom or dad or this one away, or we're only responding to the aftermath of, something horrific is good. And since I've been, in Chelsea now 30 some odd years, we've been doing good things for a long time, and getting the word out like we have. I think we've become, nationally, if not internationally recognized for a few things. I think is a great thing. It's a feather in the cap, for the administration that's been here for so long, who's led the charge. And other police departments are doing the same thing. Policing is very, it's difficult, because you don't have the luxury to Monday morning quarterback a lot of the decisions that you make. They're made instantaneously. More often they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but even the wrong decision sometimes is just based off what we knew. And policing is no different than any other profession. It evolves, and as it evolves, you hope you train more, you train different, and you learn as you go. And you learn from your mistakes and what works and what doesn't work, and you go from there. But all in all, as biased as I am, I would say that Chelsea has been ahead of the curve for a lot of different things, and I'm happy that I'm part of it.
I can speak as a unbiased, sometimes, participant in the co-response movement, and having different departments that we work with that are all wonderful. But Chelsea really is unique in a lot of ways. I think also it's a small city, in the size-wise, not number of population, with most of the officers being from the area, growing up in the same area, experiencing whatever they experienced with police, and have a different way of wanting to do the job. And when you have people in management positions, like Captain over here, it makes a difference. When you have the people who want to make those differences and want to help the community and not just enforce things, it does make a difference. And I see that ability to work together and to welcome in, an eager clinician who wants to just join everything, and allow that to happen. It's a different experience. And I go on all calls. So we were talking about on the way here, I helped with a car accident yesterday. There was a car accident, and I was able to be there and help to calm down the people that were injured in a car accident. You don't think of that as being co-response, but it is. I go on death notifications, so telling a family member that their loved one is deceased, to tell that person in a therapeutic way makes a difference.
Sure.
So when we can help to make the trauma lessened in a situation, it really is a benefit to the whole community. And the fact that Chelsea lets us in and lets us do those things. And it took a little bit of, getting in there. But they and baked goods. I bring baked goods, so that helps.
That always helps food.
But they
To
allow
most
it.
guys. Most guys get the big goods.
Not everybody.
Right. Cops and policing in general, like I've said this forever, that policing, there's two things that police officers don't like, and that's the way things are and change. Right?
That's right.
I think it's probably true for everybody.
Yeah,
Particularly for
a lot more
police.
so
Yeah.
for us. We like all the bells and whistles and things that come along with it, and some other things we don't necessarily like. But once you get acclimated to the change and you find out, I may not have to do as much as I did, or I might have to do something different. Report writing is not one of the biggest fans of policing, but things change and things evolve. Cops get accustomed to different things, and this is one of those things that they're slowly acclimating to, most people. And there's not a person on the face of the earth in policing that cannot relate to something personal that they respond to every day. It's just that they have to kind of triage it like a doctor. You can't get too emotionally involved in that call at the outset, but it's going to emotionally affect you afterwards. In the cumulative buildup of that over 30 some odd years, 35 years, it's a lot. It's a lot. And in policing, unfortunately, in the past 6 years that I've lost my son, I've come to meet a lot of people that are in the same, circumstances as I. A lot of great people. But getting that word out amongst, my peers and then in the community in general, I think is important. And I'm not going to, single out policing over fire, over this, over that, take the umbrella off of everybody, including the citizens. Like, this is just one big effort to stop, the suicide pandemic, if you want to call it
Yeah,
that.
it is.
I would call it that. And I think slowly how things change and they get recognized throughout life, it gets more recognition the more that people are affected by it.
Yeah, I think it took a lot of courage, Dave, for you to go down that path and be that kind of advocate within the policing world. So, thank you.
No, that was my, my promise to my son, to be able to kind of, live vicariously now through him and do something in his memory that he would, most assuredly have done. Just a few people that I met in the field that he worked at over at the Solomon Fuller, world-class clinicians that, spoke on his behalf for the short amount of time that they knew him. I knew I raised a street angel and a house devil, which is what he was, and he still remains to be that angel now that is kind of overseeing what I do going forward. So that gives me the push to be able to do it and know that if I can do one to hopefully pay it forward, then that's what we need. That's what we need.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks. With that, I think we'll wrap it up unless you have any final words, Kate.
No, but
I
people
think it
should
was
give us a call if they need support. We're always here.
Yeah, call. Do we have a number that you want to throw out that they could call?
We do.
Yeah.
They can call the 988 if they need support, and 988 will definitely send people over to
Yeah.
the correct supports.
They'll find their
Or
way to you.
911.
Or
And then
911.
they can, one doesn't replace the other,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
They can hopefully discern through the call that, what the services are that they need. And the main thing is the call.
And
Call
you
that
can-
998, call that 911.
Yep, or you can always look up the Mobile Crisis Intervention Team, the MCI team in the area.
Yeah. My apologies for not having that number. I'll have it for you next time, which I hope you will join us. And thank you for joining us here at this maiden show, the first show. And do come back. And thank you both very much. It was a beautiful conversation,
Thank
and I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.